It'd be very nice to meet you one day, Mr. Jimmy Savile, just, you know.
If you've got a sister, you could meet me by bringing her along.
Welcome to WatchMojo UK, and today, in this unranked list, we're looking at Britain's most scandalous radio presenters.
In a statement, he said, "They are destroying my career and reputation because my version of events does not tally with theirs."
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Scott Mills.
This is the Scott Mills Breakfast Show. I really hope you enjoy it. Let's go.
BBC Radio Golden Boy Scott Mills was let go in 2026, shocking the country. The rumour mill got going while we waited for more information, eventually learning that he was sacked after historic allegations of sexual offences involving a teenage boy came to light.
Let's get it started. Let the Eurovision Song Contest begin.
The allegations dated between 1997 and 2000, and he'd already been investigated by the Met in 2018, which didn't press charges due to insufficient evidence. The BBC is desperately trying to save face, with some claiming the corporation didn't know anything about the investigation, and others saying that it did.
Today, the broadcaster told Channel 4 News,
"What we can confirm is that in recent weeks we obtained new information relating to Scott."
Mills himself has only said that he cooperated with the police and no charges were pressed after the investigation was closed in 2019. Chris Evans.
He's been hailed by many, particularly himself, as the saviour of Radio 1.
He was the Larry voice of Radio 1 in the 1990s and rose to new heights of fame while also fronting TFI Friday on Channel 4. But can you host Radio 1 in the morning and then present live on Channel 4 in the evening? Apparently not, because in 1997 he finally fell out with the BBC for good and quit.
He currently presents TFI Friday on Channel 4, where he continues to uphold a reputation for rudeness and outrage.
This came after a bevy of controversies, chiefly that he was demanding to have Fridays off so that he could have more time for Channel 4, not to mention taking time off whenever he felt like it. But he'd made yet more trouble by making inappropriate jokes about Anne Frank, and at one point taking his crew on an all-night bender.
He's criticised his boss on air, said most of his listeners are thick, made a tasteless joke about Holocaust victim Anne Frank, and only recently refused to do the Radio 1 roadshow.
Alex Belfield.
A former BBC radio presenter has been jailed for 5.5 years for stalking other broadcasters online.
This bizarre case unfolded in 2021 when BBC Radio Leeds presenter Alex Belfield was sacked and eventually convicted of stalking. Chillingly, the people he was stalking were other BBC presenters, and he was eventually charged with 8 counts, but convicted of 4.
The judge said Alex Belfield weaponised the internet using an army of followers to spread false allegations that were driven by personal grudges and slights.
He went on to describe himself as an anti-BBC journalist, despite working for the corporation for years, and accused the investigating police officers of being paid by the BBC to fit him up.
Belfield argued he was simply exercising his right to free speech, but today he returned to court to be sentenced for 4 stalking offences. The jury found that 2 of his victims were subjected to serious abuse and harassment.
The detective he accused of this then took Belfield to court for libel, winning, forcing Belfield to apologise and pay him damages. Though he was released in 2025, he was swiftly recalled for violating his licence conditions.
Today, Belfield's barrister said he now has genuine remorse, and after seeing the distress of his targets in court, he now accepts they were victims.
Katie Hopkins.
Now, if you take a load of scientists, specifically South Korean scientists who've got about as much sense of humour as my mother-in-law.
And journalists, apparently.
And she's dead.
For just over a year, Hopkins was a Sunday presenter on LBC, fielding calls from the listening public while making her usual inflammatory remarks. But it was actually a comment on Twitter, not on LBC itself, that lost her this cushy radio gig in 2017, when she unwisely decided to tweet about the tragic Manchester Arena bombing.
I didn't hear it, but I mean, just looking at the quotes, you can sense it's said in a disparaging way.
The very next day, Hopkins suggested that a, quote, final solution was needed. She clearly saw the error of her ways as she rapidly deleted the tweet and reposted it with the words true solution instead, claiming ignorance to the Nazi connotations. Her contract with LBC was immediately terminated.
Until he apologised. No,
there are limits.
There's not limits, Jonathan.
There are limits to what you say, particularly in public.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Tim Westwood.
We are live on BBC 2. Welcome to the Radio 1 Rap Show. This is how Radio 1 get down in the 9-7.
It remains somewhat miraculous that Westwood, raised by a vicar in Norwich, became such an influential voice in British hip-hop over the last few decades. He rose to fame working on radio stations in the late 80s, eventually moving on to Radio 1, while continuing a successful television career as the host of the UK version of Pimp My Ride.
And one thing, UK rap doesn't get much love on the radio or on the TV, so grateful of this opportunity for you to come up and do your thing for real, you know what I'm saying?
But it all came crashing down in the 2020s when allegations about Westwood began to surface. In 2022, the Met opened an investigation and he was eventually charged with over a dozen counts of various offences. He pleaded not guilty in 2025 and is awaiting trial.
He's charged with sexual offences against 7 different women that allegedly took place over a period of 33 years.
Chris Moyles.
Chris Moyles, radio DJ, TV personality, and if you look at his tax return, used car salesman.
He's always been known for letting bad language slip onto the airwaves, though he was popular enough that he weathered all those storms during his time on BBC Radio. In 2012, however, Moyles got into trouble for something far more serious: tax avoidance.
Moyles signed up to a tax avoidance scheme called Working Wheels. The joining fee was £95,000.
Though he tried to stop the papers from being able to report on his finances, unsuccessfully arguing that their reporting would be a violation of his human rights, we eventually found out he dodged £400,000 that was meant to have gone to HMRC. He did it by joining a few hundred people in a tax avoidance scheme claiming they were part of a second-hand car dealership.
Using the system, he claimed to have sold £3,700 worth of used cars at a loss of £1 million.
Tony Blackburn.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the exciting new sound of Radio 1.
In 2016, seasoned DJ Tony Blackburn was spectacularly sacked by the BBC over perceived inconsistencies in the Jimmy Savile inquiry. It was alleged that a Top of the Pops audience member had made a complaint in the 70s about Blackburn, and the BBC had failed to investigate.
Leaving his house this morning, Tony Blackburn had very little to say.
It's still not entirely clear what was investigated and what wasn't, but the BBC was accused of using unsubstantiated allegations against Blackburn to bury the Savile report, which was about to be released at the time. Regardless, it was a lot of fuss seemingly over nothing, as Blackburn was reinstated 8 months later.
He says he was quickly cleared of any wrongdoing. The girl took her own life later that year.
Sachsgate.
Inappropriate and unacceptable. Now Gordon Brown joins the chorus of disapproval against Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross.
Everything Russell Brand's done while live on camera in his whole career has been disgraceful in one way or another, dating back all the way to his time on Radio 2, where he urinated into a bottle during a show. But his time at the BBC ended in 2008 after the monumental scandal known as Sachsgate.
I said some things I didn't have oughta, like I had sex with your granddaughter.
Brand, egged on by Jonathan Ross that day, infamously rang up actor Andrew Sachs, best known for playing Manuel in Fawlty Towers, and left him lewd voice messages about Brand's relationship with Sachs's granddaughter, Georgina Bailey. There were tens of thousands of complaints, with Brand and Radio 2 boss Leslie Douglas forced to resign.
As far as Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross are concerned, I believe that they should not be allowed to get away with this, and I hope now that the BBC will look very carefully at their contracts.
Trees versus concrete.
You work with trees that have been cut down then, don't you? It's a sustainable building practice.
What do you do when you're live on air and someone calls you out for not understanding an extremely simple bit of biology? If you're Mike Graham, you swiftly talk yourself into a corner, then hang up the phone.
How is it sustainable if you're killing trees?
Because it's regenerative, you can grow trees.
Right.
It was that tantrum-esque behaviour, more than what he actually said, that makes this a disgraceful moment, and something he'll probably never live down.
You can grow all sorts of things, can't you?
Well, you can't grow concrete.
You can.
Graham was interviewing a carpenter and Insulate Britain activist, Cameron, about whether wood is a sustainable resource versus concrete, and ended up suggesting that you can grow concrete. He then declared he didn't want to talk to any of those people and apparently ended the call.
See you, Cameron. Cheerio. That was Cameron. He grows trees and then cuts them down and then makes things from them.
Chris Denning.
Yeah, the show's Where It's At on the BBC Light programme, and this is Chris Denning with you right through until 5 o'clock.
Of all the former DJs caught in the net of Operation U-Tree, Denning was convicted of more offences than any other, which is even more shocking considering his career had already ended decades ago when he was first convicted in the 70s.
Some of Chris Denning's victims were in court this morning to watch him face the 24 counts of indecent assault.
He worked across the BBC in the 60s, but soon became a repeat offender in and out of prison for the rest of his life. He died in custody in 2022 after pleading guilty to 40 charges of sexual offences.
It took time to read all the charges to him. 21 times he answered that he was guilty.
Other DJs in the police's sights included David Lee Travis, Stuart Hall, and of course, Jimmy Savile himself. Though Savile was far better known for his TV work than his early career stint on Radio Caroline.
I am a 14-year-old boy in a 68, 950-year-old horrible body.
Let us know in the comments what video you want us to do next.